Hello. In case you haven't heard, activity rules are now available for manufacturing work orders and rate schedules in J.D. Edwards Enterprise 1, including the ability to trigger ledger entries. They allow a status flow to be defined and enforced similar to what already existed for plant and equipment maintenance work orders and sales and purchase orders. Within manufacturing, we've always had the ability to prevent transactions beyond a specified status, but without activity rules, there was nothing to prevent a user from changing the status back to one that does allow them and then making the transaction. So for example, even though a work order was closed and all the accounting complete, a user could update the status and issue additional material, which would create data integrity issues. Activity rules prevent things like this. Status changes are validated against the activity rules, and when an update status is specified that isn't in the status flow, a hard error is generated. You can also prevent edits to the header, parts list, and/or routing instructions and freeze orders to prevent requirements planning messages based on the order status. Ledger entries can also be activated by work order status in the activity rules, providing easy tracking of work order changes to satisfy auditing requirements. In this video, I'll show you how to set up the rules, how to activate ledger entries at specified statuses, and how to review and purge those history records. From the Shop Floor Management Setup menu, select Work Order Activity Rules. Looking at the Find Browse form, we can see that activity rules are set up by order type, also known as document type, and work order type. Inquiring on document type WO, we see that for this document type, rules have already been established for work order types S and blank. Here we're looking at the rules that have already been established for document type WO and work order type S. The first step when setting up your activity rules is to define all valid statuses. Enter every status that you use in this column. Then enter default next statuses in this column. And then up to 5 more allowed statuses in these columns. Use the lock flag to control whether work order details can be changed at specified statuses. As you can see in the help text, there are 3 possible values. 1 to just update the freeze code, which will prevent MRP from writing action messages. 2 to prevent changes to just the work order header. And 3 to prevent changes to everything, the header, parts list, and routing. Notice that locking a work order always freezes it as well. This is to prevent MRP from generating action messages that you can't process. In this example, the freeze code will be updated when a work order moves to status 40. And from status 95 forward, all edits to the work order, including parts list and routing, are prevented. Note that the lock flag doesn't prevent transactions or status updates that are allowed by the activity rules, just changes to the work order. Ledger entries are turned on in these 3 columns. 1 for the header, also known as the work order master, 1 for the parts list, and 1 for the routing. The default value is N, which means that no ledger entries will be written for the corresponding status. You turn on ledger entries by updating a ledger field to Y. In this example, we can see that header ledger records will be written at status 10. Updates to any fields in work order headers while at that status will be recorded, and work order deletion would be recorded as well. We can also see that with the setup presented here, all three ledgers will be populated at statuses 20, 40, and 80. There are three new applications to view the ledger entries. They can be found on the shop floor management periodic processing menus for both discrete and process. By the way, the ledger table names correspond with the program IDs shown here. Here's what the ledger applications look like. Ledger entries are written with action codes of A for add, C for change, or D for delete. The ledger tables mirror their corresponding header, parts list, and routing tables. In other words, every field that exists in the work order master table F48001 will also appear in the ledger table F48019. And any update to any field will trigger a ledger entry, whether it's a manual edit, a completed transaction, or an update made by a UBE. In this example, looking at the work order master ledger, we can see that this work order was created at status 10 and updated to status 20 when the parts list and routing were attached, but no quantity or date changes. Looking at the parts list and routing ledgers, we can see the addition of parts list and routing records with no change yet to the routing, but we do see that one component item number was changed. A nylon nut was replaced by stainless steel. We've also provided 3 programs to purge ledger records and added processing options to the existing work order purge program. The existing work order purge program was updated with 2 new processing options. One to indicate whether you also want to run the work order ledger purge, and one to specify the version of the work order ledger purge to run. The work order ledger purge program has 2 processing options to select whether or not to purge the corresponding parts list and routing ledgers at the same time. Of course, all the ledger purges can also be run independently. You turn on activity rules by branch in the manufacturing constants, which you'll find on the shop floor management setup menu. Just populate this new checkbox. But this is the last step you'll take. All of your rules need to be set up before you turn them on. That concludes this tutorial for the setup and use of activity rules and ledger for manufacturing. As you can see, J.D. Edwards has delivered an easy way to lock down your manufacturing processes and track change history if you need to for auditing or analysis. To learn more about the activity rules and ledger for manufacturing, as well as other topics, visit us online at learnjde.com. Thanks for watching.